What's going on, everybody? I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller, here with another installment of Micro Brand Monday. And as you can see here, we have 3 micro brand divers from a company I hadn't heard of until they wrote to me about this very review. Heinrich Watch Company with their Heinrich Taucher, which is apparently the German word for diver, although I almost assuredly just totally mangled that word. Taucher, which again is the Heinrich diver. Very, very cool. Let's go ahead and take a closer look. It's 3:24 p.m. Let's get down to business. All right, guys, so as you can see, we have 3 different dial variants to choose from. The first one I want to take a look at is this deep blue, and man, does it just pop. It looks very, very nice in the flesh. When they sent me the photos of these watches, I thought the green one would be my favorite, but here in the office, in my hands, this blue just looks incredible. But let's cycle through them. So we have a black dial to choose from as well. And for some reason, with this black dial, the patination, the faux patina as we call it, stands out just a bit more than with these other colors. Here is that green. The green really does look very nice as well, playing with the light. But I feel, in my opinion, I think I'm just partial to blue dials. I think the blue is the way to go. But let's go ahead, kind of get up close with these 3, and we'll go over some of the specifications. Okay, so each of these watches are automatic. However, interestingly enough, only the green one was moved around enough to get it going. But these 3 each have Swiss Sellita automatics, SW201s to be exact. Now, I am very partial to that movement as well because, let's see, various Boulder expeditions that I own have the Sellita. Oris Big Crown Pro Pilot has that Swiss Sellita. I just have never had an issue with the Sellita movement. They're essentially workhorse movements, high beat, hacking hand wind. You just gotta love it. 38-hour power reserve, 26 joule, and again, that 28,800 BPH beat. Now, let's get up close to my favorite of the bunch, the blue, and we'll talk about some other components of this bad boy. Okie dokie, guys, so they assured me over there, Heinrich, that this watch does have a threaded crown with a 200-meter water resistance rating, and one of my favorite parts of this job is testing that crown setting and function. So let's see how it threads up. All right. Not terribly gritty or grainy, has a definite stop, so you're not gonna feel like you're over threading it. All right, let's unthread it once more. You'll notice there's no date window for this movement's date complication. Let's go ahead and see how the hand wind feels. All right, it is alive, very, very good. Let's go ahead and see what it feels like to set that time. And interestingly enough, again, this watch is known as a ghost date. So when a company ghosts the date, it means that they have a dial that is covering up the date window. My Yema Speed Graph, that automatic chronograph movement, does have a date complication, but they ghosted it by covering it up with the dial. Again, it's a design choice. So I just felt, and I don't know if the mic picked it up, but I just felt the click of that date wheel turning. Of course, you won't see it though, because there's no date window for that date wheel. Let's thread that up. All right, very handsome diver, feels pretty solid. Again, it looks to be like a big piece of material on your wrist and definitely in my hand, but it's not terribly heavy, so I'm hoping it's not going to be too cumbersome either on the wrist. But let's talk about some of the other specs. We went over how it does have a threaded crown, 200-meter water resistance rating, 38-hour power reserve, Swiss Sellita SW201 movement. This also has a sapphire crystal. That's right, so as we close in here on the side of that double-domed sapphire, we can see a bit of distortion coming from those indexes. I really, really do like that look because it kind of gives the whole design design, a bit of a vintage aesthetic, and I don't know about you, but I love that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't share with you some close-ups of the other dial colors. So here we have a green dial version of this Heinrich Taucher, and we can see over by the 6 o'clock index, right there over by the rim of that crystal, it is being a little bit distorted by that double domed sapphire. You can see that font, that lettering, made in Germany. So this is in fact a German-made watch. You know, German watches fairly underrepresented, especially on this channel. Okay, I gotta admit, I haven't reviewed a whole lot of German watches, but I'm doing better at that. Recently, we took a look at a Zeppelin that used actually a Japanese Miyota movement, and here with this other German-made watch, they are using a Swiss movement. So I have yet to get a Zin in the office, but you know, that's another one that I really like. In fact, that 3006 hunting watch, baby, that's still on my list. But yeah, so for those of you interested, I know every time we do these Micro Brand Monday episodes, people want to know, where is the watch made? Well, this says made in Germany, although where the watch says made in Germany or Swiss made, you know, it's all very vague, and they always change their rules and criteria about what it means to be German made or Swiss made or made in wherever, Kalamazoo. So if you care, here it is, says made in Germany. There you go. And I tricked you again. I'm a bit of a magician, but here we are cycling through to the black dial variant. This is also a very clean variant, I can see. I really do like that contrast between the kind of border of the indexes with that steel finish, and then of course the patination. And what's interesting is not only is it faux patination, like not only is it discolored, that kind of creamy custardy off-white color, it's also kind of puffy. So kind of how you'd look at aged tritium on my 16800 Submariner. This has that same textured look. So not only is it discolored, it also looks kind of puffy. And I really do like that kind of contrast between the clean black, the cool steeliness of the border index in that handset, and then of course the patination. And I know people, you know, you either love it or hate it. I tend to like faux patina if it's done well, and I think they did a good job. Now, what I will say, I'm very excited a little bit later on in the episode to test the lume, because Hamilton has proven that just because a watch has faux patina doesn't mean it can't glow very vibrantly. My Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical 38 has faux patina, and it is very vibrant. So I'm hoping with these big bold indexes and these big broad hands that hopefully it will still glow vibrantly, because let's face it, if you have a sports watch, it should have some decent lume, especially a modern one. But I just wanted to show you guys the font as we close in here on the logo. It has that kind of crest with the I think it's probably a lion's face. It says Heinrich in fairly big font. It's being obscured a little bit by the handset. But yeah, I think it's tastefully done. Not a whole lot of text. Of course, you do have that Taucher and the 200 meter, 660 feet down below that, and then way below that you have the made in Germany. But I think it's a tasteful dial, no complications. Honestly, I think that's the way to go for this watch. So here's something very unique that I don't think I've ever seen on this channel, ever, out of any watch I've ever reviewed. This bezel, the knurling, and then this kind of wave etching all around that bezel. It's so unique. I had to give you a close-up because, again, I've never seen anything like it, quite frankly. Now you'll notice some scratches on this brushed finish, but this is a review piece, so this has been passed around to other reviewers. But let's go ahead and test the actuation of that bezel, because this is a diver after all. It's a Taucher. All right, so we've already felt the knurling on that crown, and it feels decent. By the way, the crown is signed, but we've also seen that very unique knurling on this bezel. Let's see how it feels in the hand when we're actuating it. So a little bit of play, as you can see. Very positive ratcheting sound and feel. So if we're going to line it up to that minute hand, back to the middle, Yeah, tiny bit of play, but yeah, there's still a good bit of resistance, but if I have to give it a criticism, that's definitely one of it. Or that's definitely a bit of criticism there. All this pronunciation of the Deutschland words, Taucher, I'm forgetting how to speak English. So yeah, that's one little bit of criticism, is the play in the bezel, but very interesting knurling. What I will say is if your hands were wet, it's also, okay, it looks cool and clean, but I kind of wish it was a little bit more grippy. Is that a weird complaint? Whatever, I call it as I see it. I wish there was a bit more knurling, to be honest, on the bezel. All right, guys, you know the deal. It's time to take a look at the loom. Please don't disappoint me, please don't disappoint me, please don't disappoint me. I am not very happy with this. You must shine a little bit brighter for me. Come on, what is going on here? Okay, hold on. I am literally pressing the flashlight up against this watch's dial. Not great. See, people say that I'm too much of a stickler. They're like, wait, it looks great on camera. The loom looked fine. Why is T3 complaining? Well, it looks different on like to the naked eye. I think the camera does a little bit of compensation for you there on the viewer's end. But it's just, yeah. Okay, this does not have great loom. I gotta say it. Please do better on the production models. This is not great. Yeah. That's a strike against this watch for sure. Okay, so I wanted to flip the watch over to show you the case back, but I noticed this very impressive clasp. Check it out, guys. We have a few buttons here. These will be to open the clasp, but let's say you want some adjustments. These will be your go-to. So you have a few micro adjustments, or if you're gonna wear this, I suppose, over some form of diving suit, wetsuit, dry suit, this will give you a bit more real estate on the wrist. But where I find these micro adjustments to be useful is honestly just on your day-to-day, because I don't know about you, when it gets hotter out, you know, my wrist swells a little bit, and there's nothing worse than being hot and having your watch too tightly on your wrist. Is just terribly uncomfortable. So what I do this on my Seiko Tuna all the time. I just reach over and give myself a few more clicks. Maybe even one will do the trick. But or if it's very cold out and you want to wear this over a jacket, you can go all the way. But you have a few adjustments there. Very, very cool. Love to see some added function. And the clasp looks very cool with that crest. Now, what I will say, of course, it is scuffed up quite a bit. And that's because, you know, this is a media piece. I will actually be sending these watches to some other reviewers, some of which you may have heard of. I'll give you a hint. Hello! Man, gotta love that guy. All right, moving on. Let's take a look at the case back. All right, as we close in on this case back here, we can see that wave engraving, that pattern that we saw on the bezel is kind of carried over here on the case back, and you can see Einrich is there as well. Some of the etching here, made in Germany, Einrich watches, Stuttgart. We can see, let's see, some more German words that I don't understand. Automatic. Heck yeah, I think that's where the numbers would be, but of course this is a media piece. Water resistance, 20 bar, and then sapphire glass. Very cool. Let's go ahead and measure it and then put it on the wrist, and we can see how it feels, because watches are meant to be worn, dang it. Alrighty guys, let's go ahead, break out the digital calipers and measure this dang thing. You'll notice has almost a cushion case, a little bit more angular, very, very sharp. Let's go ahead and measure it at its widest point, excluding the crown. Now you'll notice this watch does not have any crown guards, kind of going along with that vintage aesthetic. 41.4 millimeters across. Let's look at the lug to lug. 46.8 millimeter lug to lug. Let's see how thick it is. 13.8 millimeters thick. Not gargantuan, but let's go ahead, put it on the wrist and see how wearable it actually is. All right, guys, here it is, the Einrich Taucher on my 7.5-inch wrist for reference. What I will say is, although initially it felt like a large piece of material, I think it being a very angular case made me think it was going to be like a brick on the wrist. It's actually incredibly light. Okay, it's very, very comfortable on the wrist. Now, when I see these bracelets, it kind of makes me wince a little bit because these are notorious hair pullers, and I am a very hairy dude. I haven't noticed it just yet. Maybe by the time this episode gets edited and uploaded, I'll have some more to say after I wear it for a little longer. But first impressions, it's not pulling any of my hair nowadays, or this day, I should say. Nowadays, what I was trying to say is I tend to prefer more of like an oyster type bracelet. Fewer links, fewer areas for my hair to get caught and pulled in, but so far, I think that this bracelet really does look good with this watch design. Kind of gives it almost kind of a mesh vintage look. And yeah, very comfortable on the wrist and wears incredibly flat on the wrist. So if you have larger wrists than mine, I think you could totally pull this off. If you have smaller wrists than mine, it might wear a bit large, but this isn't like a humongous watch. This feels smaller than my Tuna. Like it feels much more wieldy than my Seiko Tuna. And that's a compliment because I think the Seiko Tuna is incredibly wearable, especially for its size on paper. So yeah, great job, Einrich. Okie dokie, guys. So after spending a little while with these Einrich Taucher divers, what do I think? Well, impressive spec sheet, right? Double dome sapphire crystal, 200-meter water resistance rating, threaded crown. Let's see, very, very resilient build as far as the materials used, and the fit and finish is quite nice. Let's go over the price though. This is going to be around $639 according to the website. That's a pretty penny. Now you are getting a Swiss Solida movement and an all-around German-made watch, whatever those words mean to you. Again, that's just under 700 bucks. You're not getting any complications. You are getting a very solid sports watch, but again, with that price, there are a whole lot of options out there. So I'm not going to tell you need to run out and buy this watch now. I almost never say that about any watches. But what I will say is if you do choose to spend that money on this watch, you will be getting a very solidly built German watch, and the spec sheet speaks for themselves. I think they took some very good materials, some good movements, and they put them in very, very tough looking, tough feeling watches. And yeah, can't complain about that. Now, if you're not into this whole kind of pseudo vintage aesthetic, this whole kind of aged look, then this is definitely not the watch for you. But if you want something a bit unique looking, that's not your kind of general Submariner homage, then yeah, I would tell you absolutely consider this Einrich Taucher. All right, guys, well, there you have it. Another installment of Microbrand Monday in the books. Special thanks to you for hanging out with me. I can't do any of this content without your viewership, so I really do appreciate it. Special thanks to Einrich Watch Company for, sending me these watches to review and sponsoring this episode. We can't do it without these products. Now, I am not keeping these watches. I am sending them out to other reviewers so that they may make content for you and give you their opinions on these watches. I had a whole lot of fun. I'd love to hear what you think. Please leave me that comment below so I can gain your perspective. If you want to support the channel a little bit more, then go ahead, check out the affiliate links in the description below. We have a whole bunch of stuff for the watch collector like you. Watch winders, watch toolkits, watch straps, modern watches, kind of the one-stop shop in the description there. Check out www.thetimetellershop.com. That's my personal website, the #1 place to find affordable vintage luxury watches handpicked by me. And yeah, guys, you can join the channel. $4.99 a month gets you that certified T3 bot designation, and it's like YouTube's Patreon. You get 6 pieces of content a week and access to that members only Discord chat. So whole bunch of ways to support us, but the easiest way to support us is just to keep watching this content and doing what you're doing. We really do appreciate it. So guys, please like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with everyone you know. I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller, and always remember, I didn't invent time, I just tell it.